Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Climb Safely, Work Safely, the final webinar in our 2026 National Ladder Safety Month webinar series. My name is Joe Zagrabic, and I'm with the American Ladder Institute. We are excited to have Ryan Mittelmeyer, Technical Services Representative at Werner, lead today's presentation. But before we begin, a few quick announcements. The American Ladder Institute is a not-for-profit association dedicated to promoting the safe use of ladders. Its members are affiliated with the ladder and ladder component manufacturing industry, and ALI is the American National Standards Institute approved developer of ladder safety standards. National Ladder Safety Month, observed in March and spearheaded by ALI, is the only program dedicated exclusively to promoting ladder safety at home and at work. This year marks the 10th anniversary of National Ladder Safety Month, and we are excited to bring to you a new series of webinars covering safe ladder use. Partnering with ALI for today's webinar is Werner. Werner actively advocates for ladder safety and accident prevention through their range of innovative product solutions, in-person training, and online educational programs. A few quick housekeeping items. All attendees will remain muted during the program. At the end of the presentation, attendees can ask questions by typing them into the Q&A feature. This webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording with all attendees later this week. The recording is also available online at laddersafetymonth.com. Please note that personal recording devices are not permitted during the webinar. Before we begin, we'd also like to ask your help with an important industry survey. ALI is currently conducting the 5th iteration of our ladder safety training and citation survey, which helps assess the effectiveness of ladder safety training across the industry. We'd like to hear from you about ladder-related safety training, ladder injuries, OSHA citations at your company. The survey takes about 10 minutes to complete, and all responses are anonymous. Your input will help improve ladder safety training efforts and resources for ladder users. We'll also drop a link to the survey in the chat for anyone interested in participating. And with that, I'll pass it over to Ryan. Ryan, if you want to share your screen, you can begin your presentation.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, you have the screen there?
It is not showing right now. Yep, there you go.
I think we got it now. Good. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks to Joe and the American Ladder Institute for having me. Also, everyone on the call for joining today. As mentioned, my name is Ryan Mittelmeyer, Tech Services with Werner Ladder. I'll start by saying this is a great opportunity that comes at a great time of year with ALI in the month of March. Obviously, ladder safety is something that is an every day of the year event for all of us, but the overall emphasis and awareness put on climbing safety this month by ALI has been really awesome to see and be a part of. Werner as a whole has partnered with ALI now consecutively for our 10th National Ladder Safety Month. I'll say that again, 10 years, just a truly outstanding decade and a proud partnership of ours. In addition to supporting American Ladder Institute's efforts, Werner has participated in podcasts, launched new safety training videos, and created a new ladder safety page with helpful resources. You can find digital assets, including inspection forms, the ability to request on-site training with our job site safety team of specialists. These guys are in the field today and have been leading trainings all of March and every month throughout the year. So thank you again for your time today. The goal at the end of the day is we all go home safe, right? This stuff matters. Today for the week 4 topic, I'm going to be talking to you about safety at height. This is post ladder selection. After you've done your setup, you're on the job and you're ready to climb. These are some of the safe practices that should be used on how to climb safely and work safely. Before we get into some of the usage scenarios, of course, when we talk about safety, we must talk about OSHA. Ladder violations continues to show up year after year on OSHA's top 10 most cited standards, ranking at number 3 last year in 2025. That means the same unsafe behaviors are happening repeatedly across industries. Most violations are for improper ladder setup and use, such as overreaching or failure to maintain 3 points of contact, or also just using the incorrect ladder. These are almost always preventable with training and practicing the right habits. Okay. Safe climbing starts before your feet ever leave the ground, and it is with selecting the right ladder. This is using step ladders for self-supporting work, extension ladders for working at height, or if you need vertical access, podium or platform ladders when you need a bigger, more stable platform. If you're stretching or leaning or trying to make it work, you probably chose the wrong ladder. Next, inspect it always. This is making sure the rails are solid, no cracks or bends, steps and rungs are secure, labels are readable. If something looks off, it probably is. Best to just tag it and grab another ladder. Inspection forms are available online as a resource to help ease with this process, but please take the time to always inspect before you climb. Now let's talk about the climb itself, and this is where most incidents happen. We'll start with the rule that hopefully everyone knows. That's 3 points of contact. That means 2 hands and 1 foot, or 2 feet and 1 hand on the ladder, always when ascending and descending. Always face the ladder, no climbing sideways, no turning around. You want to climb confidently and be aware of your movements. How you climb determines how safely you work. One way this rule often gets broken is with users transporting tools and materials. Tools should always be carried in a belt. And keep your hands free while climbing or hoisted to the area when needed. You never want to overload yourself with materials while climbing the ladder. Just take the time to plan your work so you're not constantly climbing up and down with armfuls of equipment. You want to be hands-free and be conscious of your ascend and descend. Another major risk we see in the field is with ladders being used incorrectly or not as they were intended, which is misuse. A good example of this is someone standing too high or above the second step on a step ladder, or even sitting at the very top of the ladder trying to reach their work area. This is just a disaster waiting to happen. In this case, the ladder is too short and you need a longer ladder. Each ladder is manufactured with a published reach height. Take the time to verify that the ladder is correct for the job that you are on. So on traditional step ladders, you never want to stand above the second rung from the top. On standard extension ladders, never above the 4th rung from the top. Just make sure that you're in a safe position to work. If you're not, you want to reset and climb again. It's not worth the second guess. All right, now that we've covered our safe areas while climbing vertically, let's talk about some of our working positions and where we need to stay while we're standing on the ladder. Another big red flag or incident maker we always see on ladders is overreaching. This applies to every ladder type, regardless of size or material. When you lean, you're in trouble. Your center of gravity shifts and you're in danger of the ladder tipping or falling sideways. The rule is simple. Your belt buckle, which is essentially your center of gravity, should always stay between the side rails while you're on the ladder, period. The moment you lean your shoulders outside of the rails, maybe to reach that last screw or a piece of material, you're shifting your weight and you're putting yourself at risk. It might feel like just a little stretch, but that small reach can turn into one of the biggest failures. And that's where we see users walking the ladder or attempting to fix position while at height. It is never the correct move. Instead, you want to climb back down, reposition the ladder so your work stays in front of you. You always want to move the ladder and not your body. Keep 3 points of contact, stay facing the ladder, stay centered. This protects you from sudden loss of balance. The few extra seconds to reposition is always worth preventing a serious injury. Just climb down, move the ladder, and climb back up. It does take longer, but it is not optional. Next, we'll talk body mechanics. Your body is crucial to the working safely at height. You always want to keep both feet flat on the step or rung. There's no standing on tiptoes, trying to balance on one foot, or twisting your torso to reach behind you. You want to try to avoid sudden movements and be aware of your mechanics. If the task requires excessive force, say where you're pulling or prying or pushing against a surface, you want to make sure that you have the correct ladder and you are in the correct position to support yourself while doing that. Your body control is also key when transitioning on and off the ladder itself. So from the first step onto the rung to exiting to a roof or a landing surface, always use controlled, deliberate movements that keep you safe during your transitions. When you're working on a ladder, your body mechanics matter just as much as the ladder you have for your setup, and you want to make sure that they're all correct. Next, we'll talk about ladder accessories. These are great for improving safety and productivity, but only when you know how to use them. Before you climb, you want to evaluate the job and surface you're working on. If you're setting up on uneven ground, leg levelers can be used to create a stable level base. You never want to use scrap wood or other materials underneath the ladder to try and adjust it. Levelers are specifically designed to be used in this scenario. And another example would be working against a surface or a wall, or fragile surfaces like gutters. They're stabilizers that help distribute the weight and stand off and give side-to-side stability. But always make sure that you install accessories that are approved for the use with your ladder and confirm that they are securely attached before climbing. Accessories are meant to improve the ladder stability function and support safer work at height, but they only enhance safety when they're the right accessory for the job and used correctly. And lastly, I would just like to say that proper ladder use isn't complicated, but it does require discipline. Most ladder injuries occur not because the ladder failed, but because safe practices weren't followed. I think all of us get in a rush to get things done sometimes on a ladder is not the place to do that. You want to make sure that you take your time and you're putting yourself in position to climb safely and work safely every time. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions now that might have came through the chat. There's no good or bad here. Just throw them in. I can see how I can help.
Thank you. Yep, so we can open up. If you have any questions, you can put those into the Q&A feature and we can pass those along. Ryan, to get started, I guess, out of all the different kind of ladder mistakes you see, in the field, in the industry, what do you think is the most common mistake that you are seeing people make when working at height?
As far as use, I'll say overreaching is consistently one of the most common ones. Again, I guess back to that belt buckle rule and just keeping your center from moving outside the rails. This is keeping you and the ladder stable while you work. So if you can't keep your center between the rails, it's best just to climb down, move the ladder. No reaching, twisting, trying to do something, get something that is out of your reach.
Great. So nothing yet. We can give people a few more minutes if anyone wants to add any questions or add a question in the Q&A field. Someone asked, so when discussing the 3 points of contact rule, does the knees leaning into the ladder count as a point of contact?
It does, yes. So while climbing, obviously you use your hand and feet, but when you're into your working position and you're standing there, so you can use 2 feet and your knees leaning into the rail, that would be your third point of contact. You can also use your hips in some scenarios, like on a podium ladder where you have that support at your waist, you're able to use that as your third point of contact also.
Great. Let's see if anything else comes through. Can you talk more about the climbing, what the climbing angle is for extension ladders?
Yes. So I don't think I have it in a slide here, but for extension ladders, the position of the ladder should be at a 4-to-1 ratio. So essentially, for every 4 feet the ladder is going up, you want 1 foot at the base of the ladder coming out from the wall. It's essentially a 75-degree angle that it puts you at, but it helps from the ladder slipping out or I guess climbing too steeply, tipping backwards. But yeah, the 4-to-1 rule is kind of what is used in the field. If you can remember that, for every 4 feet up, you go 1 foot out at the base.
Great. And then, so as far as label requirements, can you provide some more information on that? For example, what if I have some labels that are becoming illegible or falling off the ladder? Kind of how should I proceed with that?
Yes. So that is a big, I guess, as far as OSHA citations, we see that a lot with ladders that aren't labeled. What would be required is all safety labels and the duty rating of the duty rating label of the ladder. So depending on if it's 200 pound up to 375 pound, we have replacement labels available for that. And then same with the safety labels. They vary depending on if it's a step ladder, extension ladder, platform ladder. But you would need to have all of those on the ladder and visible for it to be compliant.
And then can you go back over the highest standing level for a step ladder? And then how does that differ with the new leaning ladders that are on the market?
Yes. So your standing levels, I guess, with the step ladder. So yeah, 2 rungs down from the top here. Extension ladder 4 rungs down. So this is the maximum. These are labeled to you typically, I guess, in the safety label kit that we talk about. You have, do not stand above this step. That label should be visible on both of these, so you know that you're not standing above that. With a leaning ladder, essentially a step ladder that is approved to be used in a leaning scenario, this back section rails will fold into it, and then it is essentially a straight ladder that you use. So whenever it's in the straight ladder position, you would treat it almost as an extension ladder in that case. So you have this straight section here that you're on. You wouldn't stand above that unless you were using it to transition to an area.
Great. And then how do I maintain 3 points of contact while on a step ladder, like on a job site when I have to carry tools or get equipment up to a upper level?
So it's difficult, and that's where you should have a tool belt, or if you have a lift or a way to hoist tools. That's the recommendation to it. Obviously, you don't want to climb with your hands full of material. So try to think of I guess a different way that you can get the tools to the top while you're climbing. There is accessories, even like tool buckets that can be attached to a step ladder. You could stow the tools in there if needed, but you want to keep your hands free while you're climbing to maintain the 3 points of contact.
And then when climbing an extension ladder to get to a roof, how many feet above the roof line does the extension ladder need to go? And then are there any other options available so you don't have to step to the side of the ladder?
Yes. So on a standard extension ladder, if you're accessing a roof, you'd want to be at that 4-to-1 angle that we talked about. But you want to have 3 rungs or 3 feet above the roof line to transition off to it. And when doing that, you keep both hands on the rail. You can transition off to the side. The the substitute to that, I guess, to walk through is it's actually called a ladder walk-through that will go at the top of the extension ladder. So you still have your overhang at the roof, but you're able to hold on to handrails that extend above and actually step through and off to the roof surface. So it kind of saves that odd transition from the side on and off. You're able to step right through onto the roof, and then same when you are climbing back down, you can step back through straight onto the ladder.
Great. And we know there's different ladder materials available, but when using a fiberglass ladder, are there any indicators that there's UV damage and that ladder is no longer usable? Kind of what are some signs for damage on fiberglass ladders?
So UV damage is very common, especially depending on where you live. If you're in warmer climates, the sun beats on the fiberglass, it will start to fade over time, which is okay. It might have some discoloration to it. If it gets to the point where we call it blooming, where the fiberglass is actually starting to peel away from the ladder, or it's damaging the structural integrity of it, I guess, is where it becomes a concern to it. So, fading for the most part is not a concern, but if it is faded to the point where it's starting to actually peel apart, you can usually feel it on your hands. Even you'll climb up and it's flaking off, and blooming is what they call it. That is where it's a concern.
I know there's not an exact answer for this, but what would you say is, someone's asking what's kind of the expected, basically how long does their ladder last? How long is kind of the expected life for a ladder? Can you maybe touch on that?
There's it unfortunately there's not a shelf life really. It could be. It depends on the use. So we've seen ladders that are used day in and day out, and maybe after 5 years it's gotten beat up. It hasn't been taken care of, and it needs to be replaced. But then, yeah, your residential homeowner, you could have one, and you only use it for Christmas lights, and it lasts 10, 15, 20 years. So it does just depend. They should be inspected before each use, so that's a good, when you're looking at, I guess, faded fiberglass or parts, anything like that, any of your components, you want to inspect it every time before you get onto it. A lot of times there's replacement parts, but sometimes it's to the point where it's not able to be, repaired as well. But there's no exact, shelf life or end of date, I'll say, for ladders.
And then that slide where you show the various types of ladders, can you maybe talk about some key differences of using a podium ladder versus the A-frame step ladder?
Yes. Yep. So I'll say big thing with platforms and podium ladders is whenever you're working at duration, obviously, on a step ladder, your feet are kind of stuck in this position, limited movement. You want to stay facing the ladder. And if you're up there for an extended period of time, it's not the most comfortable surface to stand on. Whenever you get into platform podium ladders, you obviously have a bigger footprint that you're able to stand on to. For podiums specifically, they have this higher waist rail that you're able to use as your third point of contact, and you actually can work in 360 degrees on here too. So you're not stuck just facing one direction. You're able to work hands-free in any direction off of the ladder.
Perfect. Just going through some of the questions. Um, I know you might not talk about this, but as far as fall protection, kind of is there a set at what height should you incorporate fall protection when using ladders?
It does vary depending on. I know California has some different standards. I believe with OSHA standard, I think it's anything above 10 foot, they would want you to be tied off in some capacity. I can double check that too. I think it might be different in California, but traditionally, if it's above 10 foot, they want some type of fall protection there.
And then what are kind of on this slide, what are some common uses for when using a multi-ladder?
Yeah. So the multi-ladder, you can see it here. It's just kind of in the standard A frame position. But these are able to transition to an extension ladder that you can see here. They can be used as a wall ladder, so almost in like the leaning manner that you would see back here. And then they also can be used as a stairway ladder to where this section will actually extend out, and one section will be shorter than the other, and they're able to be used in a stairway as well. Another area that can be used is to it actually come apart. So this one ladder will break into two different sections, and you can use a walkboard in between there as a support to work on.
Great. And if someone has a three-step ladder, kind of what are the usable steps? Would it just be that first one then?
So it depends on the height. So I believe for a step stool, OSHA, I think it's under 32 inches. You're actually able to stand on all of them. If it is above that, then that would be correct. Yeah, you would just have it would be labeled to it, but yeah, you wouldn't be able to stand above the second rung from the top. But yeah, below 32 inches, I believe, is classified technically as a step stool, and you can use the top step on that one.
And then if someone has a fiberglass ladder, but the stickers have worn out, how can I tell what the duty rating is for that ladder?
That is difficult. So we have with Werner, we're often able to determine by the color. It's best to reach out to the manufacturer. If you contact the customer service team, they can try to help you identify what you have. You obviously wouldn't want to label a 250-pound ladder for 375-pound rating. So it's usually best to contact back to the manufacturer with that. We can try to help identify the labels that you need that are correct for it.
And someone here is talking about setting up an extension ladder on a dirt surface and how they should best go about anchoring the base of that ladder.
Yep. So that is a good question there. So I guess from looking at this photo, you can kind of see it sitting flat on concrete. Extension ladders, they have spur feet that are able to kind of turn and pivot and dig into the dirt. We'll see that. So it just gives you, if you're on a soft surface, digs into it whenever you climb. Um, you also can use, just different methods to tie off the base too to support it. It's the recommendation for that.
Perfect. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us and for all the questions that you've provided. We hope you've enjoyed today's webinar on Climb Safely, Work Safely. You can find the recording of this webinar and all the webinars in this series at laddersafetymonth.com, along with additional ladder safety resources. And thank you again to Werner for sponsoring today's webinar and for all of you for being so engaged throughout the month. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.